The rain hammered against the hangar roof like automatic weapons fire, each drop exploding on impact with the corrugated steel. Lieutenant Kira Bridger stood alone near the equipment lockers, methodically cleaning her rifle with movements so practiced they seemed mechanical. Her hands moved with precision even as her mind replayed the debriefing from 2 hours ago, every word etched in a memory like scars on glass. The cold Pacific Northwest wind rattled the hangar doors. Kira's dark hair was still damp from the mission, pulled back tight against her skull. Her father's challenge coin sat in her pocket, the worn edges familiar against her fingertips when she reached for it. 8 years as a SEAL operator, and she could count on one hand the number of times she had felt truly uncertain. This was one of them. The voices carried from the command building across the tarmac. Lieutenant Commander Derek Vaughn held court with the other team members, his laugh too loud and too frequent. Chief Petty Officer Lorne Hastings stood beside him, arms crossed, nodding along to whatever story Vaughn was spinning. The celebration should have included her. They had all returned safely from the reconnaissance mission in the Aleutians. The intelligence package was secure, but Vaughn had made sure she understood her presence was not welcome at their gathering. Kira set down the cleaning rod and lifted her rifle to check the bore one final time. The weapon was spotless. It had been spotless an hour ago, but the repetition gave her hand something to do while her mind worked through the problem she could sense approaching like a storm front. Before we dive deeper into Kira's story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe military families are common in your area, or perhaps you've witnessed someone being blamed for another's mistakes. Commander Elena Royce appeared in the hangar doorway, her silhouette backlit by the security lights outside. She walked with the careful steps of someone delivering bad news. Kira straightened, setting her rifle in its case with a quiet click. The commander's face was unreadable in the dim hangar light. She stopped 3 paces away, maintaining the formal distance of rank. "Commander Royce, I need you in the briefing room in 20 minutes, she said. Lieutenant Commander Vaughn has filed a formal complaint regarding the Kodiak Island operation. Kira's expression did not change. She had learned long ago that showing emotion during moments like these only gave others ammunition. A complaint about what, ma'am? She asked, her voice level and professional. Royce glanced toward the command building where Vaughn's group still gathered. He's claiming you compromised the team's position during extraction. Says your actions nearly got the whole unit killed. He's requesting a formal investigation and your removal from the team. The words landed like physical blows, but Kira absorbed them without flinching. She knew exactly what had happened on Kodiak Island. Vaughn had ignored her reconnaissance report and insisted on using the primary extraction point despite her warnings about enemy observation posts. When they had taken fire, it was her suppression that allowed the team to break contact and reach the secondary LZ. Every member of that team owed their lives to her tactical adjustments in real time. Ma'am, with respect, that is not an accurate account of what occurred, Kira said. The mission recordings will show. Royce held up one hand. I know, Bridger. I have already reviewed the helmet cam footage. But Vaughn has Chief Hastings backing his version of events, and 2 other team members who say they cannot clearly recall the sequence. Royce's jaw tightened. This is political. You understand that. Kira understood perfectly. Vaughn had been angling for a promotion to full commander. A successful operation went on his record. Any complications needed someone else to blame. And a female SEAL made an easy target for certain men who had never believed women belonged in special operations. The formal hearing is tomorrow at 0900, Royce continued. You will need to provide your account of events. I suggest you bring any evidence that supports your version. Her voice dropped lower. Off the record, I want you to know I believe you. But I'm not the one making the final call here. Kira nodded once. Understood, Mom. I will be prepared. Royce hesitated, as if weighing whether to say more, then simply turned and walked back into the rain. The hangar fell silent again, except for the drumming on the roof. Kira stood motionless for a long moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out her father's challenge coin. Senior Chief Marcus Bridger had carried this coin through 3 deployments before the operation that killed him. He had never compromised his principles, never taken the easy path, never let politics override what was right. She closed her fingers around the coin and felt its weight. Tomorrow she would face Vaughn's accusations. Tomorrow she would present the truth. But tonight, alone in this empty hangar with the rain falling like artillery, she allowed herself one moment of doubt about whether the truth would be enough. The briefing room smelled of stale coffee and floor polish. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a harsh white glare that made the gray walls seem even more oppressive. Kira sat at the long table with her hands folded in front of her, posture perfect, face calm. Across from her, Lieutenant Commander Derek Vaughn leaned back in his chair with the easy confidence of someone who believed he had already won. Commander Royce sat at the head of the table, a laptop open in front of her displaying the mission files. Chief Hastings stood near the door, arms crossed, his expression set in what Kira recognized as predetermined disapproval. Two other officers she did not know flanked Royce, brought in from another command to ensure impartiality. Their nameplates read Captain Brennan and Lieutenant Commander Park. "Let us begin," Royce said, her voice deliberately neutral. "Lieutenant Commander Vaughn, you have filed a formal complaint regarding the conduct of Lieutenant Bridger during Operation Kodiak Dawn. Please state your specific concerns for the record." Vaughn sat forward, his movements calculated for effect. He had probably rehearsed this. "Ma'am, during the extraction phase of the operation, Lieutenant Bridger directly contradicted my tactical assessment and insisted on deviating from the planned route. Her actions drew enemy fire and placed the entire team at risk. Had I not taken immediate corrective action, we would have suffered casualties or worse." Kira kept her expression blank. Every word was a distortion, carefully crafted to sound reasonable while inverting reality. She had learned long ago that anger served no purpose in situations like this. Facts would speak louder than emotion if anyone was willing to listen to them. Captain Brennan glanced at his notes. The mission plan indicates the primary extraction point was designated LZ Alpha on the eastern ridge. Is that correct? "Affirmative, sir," Vaughn said. LZ Alpha was selected based on tactical analysis and provided optimal cover for helicopter insertion. Royce tapped her keyboard, pulling up the mission timeline. According to the logs, Lieutenant Bridger recommended using the alternate LZ Sierra approximately 40 minutes before scheduled extraction. "Can you explain why you rejected that recommendation?" Vaughn did not hesitate. Lieutenant Bridger expressed concern about potential hostile observation of LZ Alpha, but her assessment was not supported by our intelligence package. "I made the command decision to proceed as planned. Standard operating procedure when reconnaissance does not confirm a threat." Kira felt Chief Hastings watching her, waiting for a reaction. She gave him nothing. Her hands remained folded, her breathing steady. She had spent the night reviewing every second of helmet cam footage, every radio transmission, every tactical decision. The truth was documented in data that could not be argued with, only ignored. "Lieutenant Bridger," Commander Park said, turning to her, "what is your account of these events?" Kira met his gaze directly. "Sir, during my solo reconnaissance sweep at 1900 hours, I observed enemy movement consistent with an observation post overlooking LZ Alpha. 2 personnel with radio equipment and what appeared to be a PCAM machine gun emplacement. I immediately reported this to Lieutenant Commander Vaughn and recommended we utilize LZ Sierra, which remained clear of enemy presence." "And what was the response to your recommendation?" Park asked. "Vaughn told me my assessment was incorrect and that we would proceed as planned," Kira said. "At 2000 hours, when we moved toward LZ Alpha, the observation post I had identified opened fire on our position. I provided suppressing fire while the team broke contact and moved to LZ Sierra, where extraction was completed without further incident." Vaughn shook his head with what looked like disappointment. "With respect, that is not what happened. Bridger's position drew the enemy fire. She compromised our movement and forced us into a running firefight that could have been avoided." Chief Hastings spoke up from his position by the door. "I was on point during that movement. I can confirm that we took fire after Lieutenant Bridger's position was exposed." Kira turned to look at Hastings. The lie was so blatant it took effort to keep her voice level. "Chief, you were 20 meters behind me in the movement order. The enemy opened fire on the entire column, not on my position specifically. The helmet cam footage will confirm the direction and sequence of fire." Hastings' jaw tightened. "I know what I saw." "Then perhaps we should review what the cameras saw," Royce said quietly. She turned the laptop screen toward the others. "I have the synchronized footage from all team members queued." Vaughn leaned forward, and for the first time, Kira saw a flicker of uncertainty cross his face. "Ma'am, I do not believe that is necessary. My report is based on direct observation and tactical assessment. Camera footage only shows limited perspective." Captain Brennan raised an eyebrow. "On the contrary, Lieutenant Commander, objective documentation seems highly relevant to resolving conflicting accounts." "Commander Royce, please proceed with the footage." The room fell silent, except for the quiet audio from the laptop speakers. Kira watched the faces of the reviewing officers as they absorbed the footage. Her own helmet cam clearly showed the observation post she had reported. The tactical radio traffic captured her warnings and Vaughn's dismissal. The synchronized team footage showed the ambush initiated exactly as she had predicted, and her immediate suppressing fire that allowed the team to disengage. When the footage ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Vaughn's confidence had evaporated. Hastings stared at the floor. Commander Park closed the folder in front of him with a soft thud. "Lieutenant Commander Vaughn," Park said slowly, "this footage appears to directly contradict your account. It shows Lieutenant Bridger's reconnaissance was accurate, her warnings were valid, and her actions under fire were exemplary." Vaughn's mouth opened, then closed. "There must be context that the cameras do not capture," he said finally, but his voice had lost its certainty. "The context is quite clear," Captain Brennan said. He looked at Royce. "Commander, what is your recommendation regarding this complaint?" Royce met Kira's eyes for just a moment before responding. "Based on the objective evidence, I recommend the complaint be dismissed and that Lieutenant Bridger's conduct be formally recognized as having prevented casualties through sound tactical judgment." The words should have brought relief. But Kira saw Vaughn's expression shift from uncertainty to something colder, more calculating. She recognized that look. She had seen on the faces of men who would rather destroy something than admit they were wrong about it. This was not over. Whatever came next, Vaughn would make sure of that. The dismissal should have been the end of it. Kira returned to her quarters, expecting to resume normal operations, perhaps with some awkward tension, but nothing more. She had been a SEAL long enough to know that men like Vaughn rarely accepted defeat gracefully, but she had underestimated how far he was willing to go to protect his reputation. 3 days after the hearing, Commander Royce called her back to the office. The commander's face was drawn, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. "Close the door, Bridger," she said quietly. Kira shut the door and stood at attention. Something in Royce's tone made her chest tighten with anticipation. "Mom." "Sit down," Royce said. "Please, this is not a formal meeting." She waited until Kira took the chair across from her desk. "I need you to understand that what I am about to tell you represents a complete failure of leadership at levels above me. I fought against it. I presented every argument, every piece of evidence. None of it mattered." Kira felt the temperature in the room drop. "Man, what happened?" Royce slid a folder across the desk. "Vaughn went over my head. He contacted his mentor at JSOC, a rear admiral who has significant influence over personnel decisions. The admiral reviewed the case and has determined that regardless of the tactical outcome, your insubordination during the mission represents a breakdown in unit cohesion that cannot be tolerated in special operations." "Insubordination," Kira repeated, the word tasting like metal in her mouth. "I made a tactical recommendation based on reconnaissance. That is part of my job. I know that," Royce said, and there was genuine anger in her voice now. "Everyone with any sense knows that. But Vaughn framed it as you undermining his command authority in a combat situation. He got written statements from Hastings and 2 others claiming you have a pattern of questioning orders and creating division in the team." "The statements are lies," Kira said flatly. "Of course they are lies," Royce snapped. but they are lies from multiple sources, and the Admiral has decided that where there is smoke, there must be fire. She pushed back from her desk and stood, pacing to the window. You're being removed from the team, effective immediately. The official finding is that while your tactical skills are not in question, your ability to function as part of a cohesive unit has been compromised. Kira sat perfectly still, processing the words. 8 years of service. Dozens of operations. A record that spoke for itself. None of it mattered because one insecure officer had the right connections and was willing to destroy her career rather than admit a mistake. Is there an appeal process, she asked, knowing the answer already. Technically, yes, Royce said. Practically no. The Admiral's decision is final unless you can get someone at his level or higher to intervene. And given that Vaughn's Minner made the call, who exactly would you appeal to? She turned from the window to face Kira. I am sorry. This is wrong, and everyone involved knows it is wrong. But the system protects itself and its own. What happens now? Kira asked. You will be reassigned to a support role, pending final administrative processing. Royce's voice was bitter. They are sending you to coordinate supply logistics for the forward operating base at Cold Bay. Basically, they are burying you in the Aleutians where no one will have to think about you anymore. Cold Bay, the most remote base in the region, a supply depot for operations in the Bering Sea, a place where SEAL operators were forgotten, their skills wasted on inventory management and equipment transfers. It was career death dressed up as reassignment. When do I leave? Kira asked. Tomorrow morning. You will transport on a supply flight. There is a storm system moving in, so this might be the last flight for several days. Royce met her eyes. Bridger, for what it is worth, you are one of the best operators I have ever served with. What is happening to you is a disgrace. Kira stood, her movements controlled despite the rage building in her chest. Thank you for your honesty, ma'am. She started toward the door, then paused. Does Vaughn know about the reassignment? He requested it specifically, Royce said. He wanted you as far from his unit as possible. I think he is afraid you will find a way to expose what really happened. You should be afraid, Kira said quietly. She did not elaborate. There was nothing more to say. That evening she packed her gear in silence. Her quarters felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in. Other team members avoided her, word having spread quickly about her removal. Only one person came to see her off. Petty Officer Second Class Nico Pavlis appeared in her doorway as she was sealing her deployment bag. He was young, only 2 years in special operations, with the kind of nervous energy that came from knowing something was wrong, but lacking the courage to say it out loud. Lieutenant, he said, then stopped, searching for words. I just wanted you to know that I saw what happened on Kodiak. Your reconnaissance was solid. Vaughn screwed up, and you saved us. Kira looked at him without expression. Then why did you not say that at the hearing? Pavlis flinched. I did not want to end up like you. He looked at the floor. I know that makes me a coward. Yes, Kira said simply. It does. She picked up her bag and slung it over her shoulder. But at least you were an honest coward. That puts you ahead of most of them. She walked past him into the corridor, leaving Pavlis standing alone in the empty room. The base was quiet at this hour, most personnel either asleep or on duty. Kira made her way to the flight line where the cargo helicopter sat waiting, its rotors already spinning up. The pilot gave her a curious look but asked no questions. Disgraced officers being shipped to remote posts was not an uncommon sight. As the helicopter lifted off into the darkness, Kira looked down at the base growing smaller beneath them. Somewhere down there, Vaughn was probably sleeping peacefully, satisfied that he had eliminated a threat to his career. Chief Hastings was likely telling himself he had made the right choice backing his commanding officer. Commander Royce was probably awake, angry at a system she could not change. Kira reached in her pocket and felt the worn edges of her father's challenge coin. Senior Chief Marcus Bridger had taught her that honor was not about winning or losing. It was about doing what was right even when no one was watching, even when it cost everything. She had done what was right. The fact that she was being punished for it did not change that. The helicopter banked northwest toward Cold Bay as the storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Kira closed her eyes and felt the vibration of the rotors through her bones, carrying her away from everything she had built, toward an uncertain future in the frozen edge of nowhere. Cold Bay lived up to its name. The wind came off the Bering Sea like a physical force, carrying sleet that stung exposed skin and turned everything gray. The forward operating base was a collection of prefabricated buildings and storage facilities clinging to a strip of volcanic rock, populated by personnel who had either angered someone important or volunteered for hardship pay. Kira suspected she was the only one who had not chosen to be here. The base commander was a weathered captain named Oren Slade who looked like he had been carved from the same rock as the island. He reviewed her orders with the expression of someone who had seen this story too many times before. Supply logistics coordination, he said, not bothering to hide his skepticism. That is what they are calling it now. Yes, sir, Kira replied, standing at attention in his cramped office. Slade tossed her orders onto his desk. I have been running this base for 3 years, Lieutenant. I know career exile when I see it. Whatever you did to end up here, I do not need to know about it. What I do need is for you to not cause problems. We have a simple operation here. Supplies come in, supplies go out. Weather permitting, which it usually is not. Can you handle that? Yes, sir. Good. Chief Warrant Officer Tala Brenning runs the supply depot. She will get you oriented. Dismissed. Chief Brenning turned out to be a compact woman in her 40s with calloused hands and the efficient movements of someone who had learned to work in brutal conditions. She walked Kira through the depot with minimal conversation, pointing out inventory systems and maintenance schedules. The work was mind-numbing compared to operations, but Kira approached it with the same discipline she brought to everything else. You are overqualified for this, Brenning said on the third day, watching Kira organize a shipment of cold weather gear with mathematical precision. Way overqualified. What did you do? Sleep with someone's wife. Kira looked up from the inventory tablet. I told the truth when someone wanted me to lie. Brenning nodded slowly. Yeah, that will do it. She handed Kira a cup of coffee that tasted like motor oil. For what it is worth, truth-tellers do not last long anywhere. But they sleep better. The days blurred together in a routine of manifests and equipment checks. Kira ran every morning despite the weather, pushing herself through the wind until her lungs burned and her legs screamed. Physical exhaustion was easier to deal with than the constant awareness that her career was over, her reputation destroyed by lies she could not fight. 2 weeks into her exile, the weather reports started showing something unusual. A massive storm system was building in the Gulf of Alaska, the kind of convergence that happened maybe twice a decade. Captain Slade called an all-hands meeting to discuss preparations. This is going to be bad, he said, pointing to the meteorological charts. Category 3 winds, near zero visibility, and is going to sit on top of us for at least 48 hours. We are locking down all non-essential operations. Anyone who does not need to be outside stays inside. Anyone who does need to be outside does it in teams with tether lines. When does it hit? Someone asked. 18 hours, Slade said. We have 3 supply flights inbound that need to land before the window closes. After that, nothing moves until the storm passes. Kira spent the next day helping secure equipment and reinforce the depot buildings. The wind was already picking up, howling around the corners of structures with a sound like tortured metal. She was checking tydones on the generator building when her radio crackled. Bridger, Slade's voice came through. Get to the command center. Now. She found the captain standing in front of a bank of monitors showing weather radar and communication frequencies. His face was grim. We have a situation. One of the inbound supply flights reported mechanical issues 20 minutes ago. They're trying to make it here, but the storm is accelerating faster than predicted. Can they land? Kira asked. Slade shook his head. Not here. The crosswinds are already beyond safety margins. I told them to turn back to Anchorage, but the pilot says they cannot make it that far. They're going to have to put down somewhere in the Aleutian chain. Kira looked at the radar display, her tactical mind automatically calculating distances and survival probabilities. How many personnel on board? For crew, 2 passengers. One of the passengers is a civilian contractor. The other is a command master chief being transferred to a new posting. Were there emergency options? Kira asked. Limited, Slade said. Most of the islands out here are uninhabited rock. But there is one possibility. He zoomed the map to show a small island about 60 miles west. Unalaska has a small emergency airstrip, not maintained but theoretically usable. If they can get down in one piece, there's an old Coast Guard station that might provide shelter. Kira studied the map, her fingers tracing potential approach vectors. The terrain was hostile, the weather was going to be catastrophic, and any rescue attempt would have to wait until after the storm passed. If the crew survived the landing, they would be on their own for at least 2 days in conditions that could kill in hours. Slade was watching her. "I see those wheels turning, Lieutenant. Whatever you are thinking, the answer is no. We cannot launch any kind of rescue until this storm clears." "I understand, sir," Kira said. "But if they do survive the landing, they're going to need someone who knows Arctic survival. Someone who can keep them alive until extraction is possible." Slade's expression hardened. "You're a grounded Bridger. Your orders are to manage supplies, not volunteer for suicide missions in the worst storm we have seen in 5 years. With respect, sir, if that crew goes down, they will need help that cannot wait 2 days." The radio crackled with static and then a strained voice. "Cold Bay, this is Transport 79er. We have confirmed engine failure on number 2. Making emergency descent toward Unalaska coordinates. If anyone is listening, we're going to need immediate assistance." Kira and Slade locked eyes. In that moment, all the politics and career destruction and injustice faded away. There were people in trouble. That was the only thing that mattered. "Sir," Kira said quietly, "you know what needs to be done." Slade closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, they held resignation and something that might have been respect. "God help me," he said. "Brenning, prep an emergency kit. Full Arctic survival load." He looked at Kira. "You are not going as a SEAL. You are going as a supply specialist who happens to have survival training. If this goes sideways, I never authorized it." "Clear. Clear, sir," Kira said. She was already moving toward the equipment room, her mind shifting into operational mode. The storm was coming. People needed help. Nothing else mattered. The helicopter that took Kira toward Unalaska shook like it was coming apart. Pilot First Class Devin Reeves fought the controls with both hands, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscles jumping. The storm had arrived faster than anyone predicted, turning the sky into a churning mass of black clouds and horizontal rain. "This is insane," Reeves shouted over the roar of wind and engines. "We should turn back." Kira checked her gear one more time. The survival pack held everything she would need to keep 6 people alive for 72 hours in sub-freezing conditions. Water purification, emergency rations, medical supplies, thermal blankets, fire-starting equipment. Her father had drilled Arctic survival into her from childhood. She knew these tools like she knew her own hands. "Keep going," she said. "They do not have 72 hours without help." The radio crackled with broken transmission. Transport 79er was down. The pilot had managed to report before communications cut out entirely. Whether they had survived the landing was unknown. Whether Kira could even reach them in these conditions was questionable. But the alternative was leaving them to die, and that was not something she knew how to do. The island appeared through the storm like a jagged tooth, rising from the sea. Reeves brought the helicopter down in a clearing that was barely large enough, fighting crosswinds that tried to flip them with every gust. The skids touched ground, and Kira was moving before the aircraft fully settled, her pack already on her back. "You've got 2 hours," Reeves yelled. "After that, I cannot guarantee I can get back in here. The storm is only getting worse." "Understood," Kira said. She jumped down into knee-deep snow and immediately felt the wind trying to knock her sideways. The temperature was somewhere below 0, the wind chill pushing it into dangerous territory. She pulled her goggles down and activated the GPS unit on her wrist. The crash transport was 3 miles northeast, on the far side of the island's central ridge. She moved fast, using the terrain to shield herself from the worst of the wind. The snow was already accumulating in drifts that made every step a challenge. Kira's breathing fell into the rhythm she had learned during winter warfare training, steady and controlled despite the exertion. Her mind cataloged everything she saw: wind direction, snow depth, Potential shelter locations. Every piece of information might mean the difference between survival and freezing to death. The crashed helicopter came into view after 40 minutes of brutal hiking. It lay on its side in a small valley. One rotor blade snapped off, the other bent at an unnatural angle. Smoke rose from the engine compartment, quickly dispersed by the howling wind. Kira approached carefully, scanning for any sign of fuel leakage or fire risk. "Transport 79er," she called out. "This is Lieutenant Bridger from Cold Bay. Can anyone hear me?" A face appeared in the shattered cockpit window. A man with blood running down his forehead, eyes wide with shock. "We are alive," he said, his voice hoarse. "All 6 of us. But we are trapped." The cargo shifted during impact and blocked the main hatch. Kira assessed the damage quickly. The cargo door was indeed jammed, several equipment crates having broken loose and wedged against it from inside. The emergency exit on the opposite side was buried in a snowdrift. She pulled a pry bar from her pack and went to work on the cargo door, using leverage points she had learned during vehicle extraction training. 10 minutes of effort, and the door groaned open far enough for people to squeeze through. The pilot came first, helping the others out one by one. 3 crew members, one civilian contractor who looked like he was in shock, one command master chief who had a badly twisted ankle, and a young private who was favoring her left arm. "We need to get away from the aircraft," Kira said. "Fuel line could rupture." She looked around, spotting a rock outcropping about 200 meters away that would provide windbreak. "There. Move now." She helped the master chief, letting him lean on her as they struggled through the snow. The others followed, the wind making communication almost impossible. When they reached the rocks, Kira immediately began setting up a survival shelter using emergency tarps from her pack. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency despite the cold that was already numbing her fingers. "Who are you?" the Master Chief asked, watching her work. His name tape read Dalton. "Kira Pretier. Supply logistics from Cold Bay." She did not mention being a SEAL. That life was over. Right now, she was just someone who knew how to keep people alive in impossible conditions. "Supply logistics," Dalton repeated skeptically. "You move like special operations." Kira ignored the comment, finishing the shelter frame. "Get inside, all of you. We need to assess injuries and get core temperature stabilized." Once everyone was crammed under the tarp, she broke out the medical kit. The pilot had a head laceration that looked worse than it was. The private had a fractured wrist. The Master Chief's ankle was severely sprained, but not broken. The civilian contractor was hypothermic, his lips already turning blue. The other 2 crew members were battered but functional. Kira worked through the treatment priorities with calm precision. She bandaged the pilot's head, splinted the private's wrist, wrapped the Master Chief's ankle. For the contractor, she started the careful process of warming him slowly, knowing that rapid temperature change could cause cardiac arrest. "How long until rescue?" one of the crew asked. "Minimum 48 hours, Kira said. "The storm is going to get worse before it gets better. No aircraft can fly in these conditions." 48 hours, the contractor mumbled through chattering teeth. "We will freeze to death." "Not if you follow my instructions," Kira said. She pulled out the emergency rations and began dividing them into precise portions. "We have enough supplies for 72 hours if we are disciplined. The shelter will hold if we maintain it properly. The key is staying dry and conserving energy." Master Chief Dalton watched her organize the survival camp with increasing interest. "Where did you learn Arctic survival, Lieutenant?" "My father," Kira said simply. "He was a SEAL. Grew up training in conditions like this." Was Dalton said quietly. "I am sorry." Kira did not respond. She was checking the radio equipment, trying to get any signal through the storm. All she got was static. They were completely isolated, cut off from any support. 6 people, depending on her skills, to keep them alive in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. The wind screamed across the rocks like a living thing. Snow began to pile against the shelter walls, and Kira knew it would only get deeper. She pulled out her father's challenge coin and held it for a moment, feeling its familiar weight. Senior Chief Marcus Bridger had survived 3 weeks in the Hindu Kush with a broken leg and no supplies. He had taught her that survival was not about luck or hope. It was about knowledge, discipline, and the refusal to quit. "Listen up," she said to the group. "The next 2 days are going to test everything you have. But we're going to make it through this. I need everyone to trust me and follow instructions exactly. No heroics, no panic, no giving up." "Understood." They nodded, huddled together in the cramped shelter. Outside, the storm intensified, the wind reaching speeds that could strip flesh from bone. Inside, Kira began the careful work of keeping 6 people alive through conditions designed to kill them. She had been exiled to the edge of nowhere, stripped of her rank and reputation. But here, in this frozen hell, none of that mattered. Here, she was exactly what she had always been, a warrior who protected those who could not protect themselves. The first night was the worst. The storm reached its full fury around midnight, winds gusting past 90 miles per hour that threatened to tear their shelter apart. Snow accumulated so fast that Kira had to go outside every 2 hours to clear it from the tarp, working in darkness so complete she could barely see her own hands. Each time she ventured out, the cold hit like a physical blow, stealing breath and burning exposed skin. Inside the shelter, the 6 survivors huddled together for warmth. The civilian contractor, whose name was Marcus Webb, had stopped shivering. That was a bad sign. Shivering meant the body was still fighting. When it stopped, hypothermia was advancing to dangerous levels. Kira positioned herself next to him, sharing body heat while monitoring his pulse and breathing. Master Chief Dalton watched her work with the careful attention of someone who had spent 30 years evaluating personnel. "You have done this before," he said quietly. "Not training exercises. Real survival situations." Once, Kira replied. She did not elaborate. The memory of that mission was classified and belonged to a life she no longer had access to. She adjusted the thermal blanket around Webb and checked his core temperature with a digital thermometer. 94 degrees. Still dangerous, but stable. The pilot, whose name was Reeves like the man who had flown her in, groaned from his position near the shelter wall. His head wound had stopped bleeding, but he was showing signs of concussion. Kira had been waking him every hour to check his responses. "How long have you been logistics?" he asked, the question coming out slurred. 2 weeks, Kira said. "Before that I was SEAL operations." The shelter went quiet except for the howling wind outside. The young private, Specialist Lynn Carver, sat up straighter despite her splinted wrist. "You are a SEAL," she said, her voice filled with something between awe and disbelief. "Was," Kira corrected. Past tense. She pulled out one of the emergency rations and divided it into 6 portions, each one precisely measured. "Eat slowly. Make your body work to digest it. The metabolic process will help generate heat." "What happened?" Master Chief Dalton asked. SEALs do not just end up in logistics assignments at forward operating bases. Kira met his gaze. "I told the truth when someone wanted me to lie. The people with more rank decided the lie was more convenient." Dalton nodded slowly, understanding passing across his weathered face. "I have seen that story play out too many times. Usually ends with good people getting crushed by the system." He accepted his portion of food. "For what it is worth, whoever lost you made a mistake." "They do not see it that way," Kira said. The wind shifted, howling with renewed intensity. The tarp buckled inward, and Kira was on her feet instantly, bracing the support poles before they could collapse. The civilian contractor, Webb, tried to help, but his movements were clumsy, uncoordinated. She guided him back down gently. "Stay seated. You're still hypothermic. Let me handle this." She worked through the night, maintaining the shelter, monitoring the survivors, rationing supplies with mathematical precision. Every decision mattered. Every mistake could mean death. The responsibility should have felt heavy, but instead it felt right. This was what she had trained for. This was who she was, regardless of what any official record said. Dawn came as a gray lightning of the storm, visibility extending from 0 to maybe 20 feet. Kira ventured outside to assess their situation. The snow had drifted up to 6 feet in places. The crashed helicopter was now completely buried. The landscape was alien, hostile, designed to kill anything that tried to survive in it. She was clearing snow from the shelter entrance when she heard it, a sound that did not belong to the storm. A mechanical buzz, faint and distant. She froze, listening intently. There was again radio static. Kira scrambled back into the shelter and grabbed the emergency radio, adjusting frequencies with numb fingers. Colby, this is Bridger. Does anyone copy? The static resolved into a broken voice. Bridger, this is Colby Actual. Your status. 6 survivors, multiple injuries, holding position on Unalaska. We need immediate extraction when weather permits. Negative on extraction. Captain Slade's voice came through. Storm has grounded everything within 200 miles. But we have a bigger problem. There is a SEAL team in trouble. Kira's chest tightened. What kind of trouble? Mission went sideways, 40 miles north of your position. Team is pinned down, multiple casualties requesting emergency extraction, but nothing can fly. They're in bad shape, Bridger. Real bad. Who is the team leader? Kira asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Lieutenant Commander Derek Vaughn, Slade said. He is screaming on every channel for immediate rescue. Says they will not last another 12 hours. The name hit like a punch. Vaughn, the man who had destroyed her career, was now facing the consequences of his own tactical incompetence. Kira looked at the 6 people depending on her, then at the radio in her hand. The right thing to do was clear. The easy thing to do would be to let Vaughn experience what abandonment felt like. What is their situation? She asked. Ambushed during an operation, took heavy fire, 3 casualties, including 1 critical. They're dug in, but surrounded. Enemy has them zeroed. Vaughn keeps demanding we send rescue, but there is no way to reach them in this weather. Master Chief Dalton had moved closer, listening to the exchange. You're thinking about going, he said quietly. Kira did not answer immediately. She was calculating distances, weather patterns, survival probabilities. 40 miles through the worst storm in 5 years, to rescue a man who had tried to destroy her. It was tactically insane, strategically pointless, personally impossible to ignore. How many on Vaughn's team? She asked. 8 total. 3 wounded, 1 critical. They need a medevac that cannot reach them and tactical support we cannot provide. Can you give me their exact coordinates? Bridger, Slade's voice held warning. You are responsible for 6 civilians right now. You cannot just abandon them. I am not abandoning anyone, Kira said. She looked at Master Chief Dalton. Can you keep these people alive for 24 hours following the procedures I have established? Dalton straightened despite his injured ankle. Yes, but you cannot seriously be considering a solo rescue mission in these conditions. Kira was already repacking her gear, taking only what she would need for fast movement. Those are SEALs dying out there. Whatever happened between me and Vaughn, they're still my brothers. She checked her weapons, loaded fresh magazines. I cannot let them die because of politics. Specialist Carver spoke up, her young face serious. You will die trying to reach them. Maybe, Kira said, but at least I will die doing the right thing. She turned to Slade on the radio. Send me those coordinates. I am moving as soon as I have them. There was a long pause. Then Slade's voice came back, resigned but respectful. Coordinates incoming. God help you, Lieutenant. You are either the bravest person I have ever met or the craziest. Kira shouldered her pack and checked her compass. Probably both, she said. The first 10 miles nearly killed her. The storm had transformed the landscape into a hostile maze of snow drifts and ice-covered rock. Visibility fluctuated between 10 feet and nothing, the wind carrying snow so thick it was like moving through a white curtain. Kira navigated by compass and GPS, checking her position every 15 minutes against the coordinates Slade had transmitted. Her body moved on autopilot, muscle memory from countless training exercises taking over when conscious thought became difficult. Left foot, right foot, breathe, check compass, keep moving. The cold was a constant presence, trying to seep through her layers and steal the warmth from her core. She had to stop every hour to check for frostbite, wiggling fingers and toes to ensure blood flow remained adequate. The terrain forced her to climb. The most direct route to Vaughn's position meant crossing a ridge line that exposed her to the full force of the storm. Kira pulled herself up rocky slopes with hands that had gone numb inside her gloves, her breath coming in ragged gasps that froze instantly into ice on her face mask. Twice, she lost her footing and slid backwards, catching herself before tumbling down into ravines that would have ended the rescue before it began. At the 15-mile mark, she found shelter in a shallow cave and allowed herself 10 minutes to rest. Her legs shook from exertion. Her lungs burned from breathing air so cold it felt like inhaling broken glass. She pulled out an emergency ration and forced herself to eat, knowing she needed the calories even though her stomach was too knotted to feel hunger. The radio crackled. "Bridger, this is Cole Bay. Status check." Kira's voice came out hoarse. 15 miles covered. 25 to go. Still mobile. Vaughn's team is deteriorating fast. Their medic is trying to stabilize the critical casualty, but without proper equipment, they are fighting a losing battle. Slade paused. "They do not know you are coming. Vaughn has not been informed." "Good," Kira said. "Keep it that way." She did not want Vaughn to have the satisfaction of knowing she was risking her life to save his. She wanted him to face whatever came next without the comfort of expecting rescue. She pushed back out into the storm. The next section was worse, a stretch of exposed tundra where the wind hit with enough force to knock her sideways. She tied herself to ice axes, using them as anchors as she crawled forward meter by meter. Progress slowed to a crawl. Her estimate of 24 hours was optimistic. At this rate, it would take closer to 30. Around the 20-mile mark, she started hearing things that were not there. Her father's voice calling instructions through the wind. Her mother singing lullabies from before the cancer took her. The mind played tricks in extreme conditions, creating hallucinations from exhaustion and sensory deprivation. Kira recognized the signs and pushed through them, focusing on the simple mathematics of navigation. Bearing, distance, time. The numbers kept her grounded when nothing else made sense. She was crossing a frozen stream when the ice gave way beneath her. The shock of water soaking through her boots was like an electric jolt. Kira scrambled onto solid ground and immediately began the emergency protocol her father had drilled into her. Stop. Remove wet socks. Dry feet with spare cloth. Apply foot powder. Fresh socks. Move fast to generate heat before frostbite sets in. Her feet burned as circulation returned, the pain so intense she had to bite down on her glove to keep from crying out. But pain meant nerve function. Pain meant her feet were still viable. She laced her boots tight and kept moving, knowing that stopping now would mean freezing to death. The radio crackled again, this time with a different voice. "Cole Bay, this is SEAL Team Victor. We have one Kia. Repeat, one Kia. Critical casualty is not going to make it without immediate surgical intervention. Where is our extraction?" Kira recognized the voice. Chief Petty Officer Lorne Hastings, the man who had backed Vaughn's lies and helped destroy her career. Now he was screaming into a radio, desperate for help that could not come. There was bitter irony in that, but Kira felt no satisfaction. A SEAL was dead. Another was dying. Personal grievances meant nothing against that reality. She increased her pace, pushing her body beyond what seemed possible. The GPS showed she was getting closer. 28 miles covered. 12 to go. Her legs felt like lead, each step requiring conscious effort. Her vision was narrowing, tunnel vision from exhaustion and oxygen deficit at this altitude. But she could not stop. Would not stop. At mile 30, she crested a ridge and saw lights in the valley below. Muzzle flashes, the distinctive pattern of a firefight. Vaughn's team was pinned in a small depression, taking fire from elevated positions on 3 sides. Even from this distance, Kira could assess the tactical situation. Whoever had ambushed them knew what they were doing. The SEAL team was trapped in a kill box with no way out. She pulled out her rifle and checked the action. The weapon was cold, but functional. Her ammunition was limited, maybe 60 rounds total. Against an unknown number of hostiles who held the high ground, it was not much, but it would have to be enough. Kira began working her way down the slope, using the storm as concealment. She could see the enemy positions now, for distinct firing points arranged in a semicircle around the Pin SEAL team. The hostiles were disciplined, maintaining fire control and conserving ammunition. They were content to wait, knowing the cold would do their job for them eventually. She reached a position about 200 meters from the nearest enemy emplacement and settled into a firing stance. Her breathing slowed, her heart rate dropped into the controlled rhythm she had perfected over thousands of training repetitions. The wind was a factor, gusting unpredictably, but she had spent her entire life learning to read wind patterns in extreme conditions. The first shot took the nearest hostile in the center mass. He dropped without a sound, his weapon clattering on the rocks. The second shot caught another enemy fighter who turned to investigate, doubling him over. Kira shifted position immediately, knowing return fire would come to her last location. Confusion rippled through the enemy positions. They were taking casualties from an unexpected direction, their carefully planned ambush suddenly compromised. Kira used their disorganization to move again, flanking to a new position and taking 2 more shots. 2 more hostiles down. In the valley below, she could hear voices from the SEAL team, confusion and hope mixing in equal measure. Someone was shooting on their behalf, someone who knew what they were doing. Chief Hastings was yelling into the radio, demanding to know if backup had arrived. Kira kept moving, kept shooting, slowly dismantling the ambush from the outside in. Her ammunition count dropped with each engagement. 40 rounds left. 30. 20. But the enemy was breaking, their tactical advantage eroding as their numbers decreased and panic set in. The last hostile position tried to withdraw, falling back up the slope away from the kill zone. Kira let them go. She had done what she came to do. The ambush was broken. The SEAL team had a chance. She worked her way down toward the valley floor, every muscle screaming in protest. Her vision swam from exhaustion. She had been moving for over 30 hours without real sleep, covering 40 miles through the worst storm in 5 years, and fought a tactical engagement with precision that should not have been possible in her condition. As she approached the SEAL position, a figure rose from cover with a weapon pointed at her. She raised her hand slowly, too tired to care much if they shot her. The figure moved closer, and she recognized Chief Hastings, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. "Bridger," he whispered. "Hal, what are you doing here?" "Saving your life," apparently, Kira said. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed into the snow, consciousness fading as the last of her reserves finally ran out. Kira woke to voices arguing in hushed tones. Her body felt like it had been broken and poorly reassembled, every muscle screaming in protest. She was inside some kind of shelter, thermal blankets wrapped around her, and 4-line running into her arm. The familiar smell of field medical supplies told her someone had been working to keep her alive. "She's awake," a voice said. Petty Officer Second Class Nico Pavlis appeared in her field of vision, the young SEAL who had confessed his cowardice back at the base. His face was pale, streaked with dirt and what might have been tears. "Lieutenant, we did not know you were coming. We thought, save it," Kira said, her voice rough as gravel. "Status report. How many wounded?" Pavlis swallowed hard. 1 Kia, Petty Officer Marcus Finn, killed in the initial ambush. 1 critical, Petty Officer Wade Merrick, gunshot wound to the abdomen. He is stable for now, but needs surgery soon or he will not make it. 3 others with minor injuries. Kira processed the information. Merrick was the team member who had stayed silent during her expulsion hearing. Now he was dying, and she had traveled 40 miles through hell to give him a chance at survival. The irony was not lost on her. "Where's Vaughn?" she asked. "Outside, coordinating with Cold Bay." Pavlis hesitated. "He does not know it was you who broke the ambush. We told him backup arrived, but we did not specify who." Kira sat up slowly, her head spinning from the movement. The shelter was crude but functional, probably thrown together in desperation during the firefight. Through the entrance, she could see the storm still raging, though perhaps with slightly less fury than before. "How long was I out?" 12 hours, a new voice said. The team medic, a lean man with careful hands and exhausted eyes, moved closer. His name tape read Santos. You had severe exhaustion, early-stage frostbite on both feet, and your core temperature was dangerously low. I have been pumping fluids and trying to get your body temp back to normal. He met her eyes. What you did should not have been possible. 40 miles through that storm, then a tactical engagement. You should be dead. Disappointed I am not, Kira asked flatly. Santos shook his head. Grateful you are not. Whatever history exists between you and this team, you saved all our lives. He gestured to the other wounded SEALs scattered around the shelter. Every man here knows it. The shelter flap opened and Chief Hastings ducked inside, followed by Lieutenant Commander Derek Vaughn. Vaughn stopped dead when he saw Kira sitting up, his expression cycling through shock, disbelief, and something that might have been shame before settling on cold calculation. Bridger, he said, the name coming out like an accusation. What are you doing here? Kira looked at him with the same level gaze she had used during the tribunal. Saving your team, apparently. She gestured to the wounded men around them. You're welcome, by the way. Vaughn's jaw tightened. I did not request your assistance. This is a SEAL operation, and you're no longer part of this community. The shelter went dead silent. Pavlis looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. Santos stared at Vaughn with undisguised contempt. Even Hastings, who had backed every one of Vaughn's lies, seemed uncomfortable with the tone. Kira stood slowly, ignoring the protest from her battered body. You are right, she said quietly. I'm not part of this community anymore. You made sure of that. But those men, she pointed to the wounded SEALs, they're still my brothers regardless of what you did to me. So when I heard they were dying, I came. Not for you. Never for you. For them. Vaughn stepped closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. You want to be a hero, Bridger. You want everyone to see how noble you are, showing up to save the man who, what did you say, destroyed your career? Kira met his anger with ice-cold calm. I want you to understand something very clearly. I did not come here to prove anything to you or anyone else. I came because it was the right thing to do. Because leaving people to die because of personal grievances is something cowards do. She paused. And whatever else I might be, I am not a coward. The words hung in the air like weapons. Hastings shifted uncomfortably. Vaughn's face flushed red, his fists clenching at his sides. For a moment it looked like he might swing, but Santos moved between them. Enough, the medic said firmly. We have wounded men who need extraction and a storm that is finally starting to break. Save the territorial pissing contest for when we are all back at base. Vaughn backed down, but his eyes never left Kira's face. We will discuss this further when we return. There will be questions about how you happened to be in position to intervene. Questions about whether this was some kind of setup. Kira laughed, the sound bitter and exhausted. You think I orchestrated your ambush so I could rescue you and look good. You really are paranoid in addition to incompetent. That is insubordination, Vaughn snapped. I do not work for you anymore. Remember, Kira said. You saw to that. She turned to Santos. When is the extraction window? The medic checked his watch. Storm is projected to clear enough for helicopter insertion in approximately 6 hours. Cold Bay is staging 2 birds for simultaneous extraction. 1 for wounded, 1 for the rest of us. Merrick will not last 6 hours without better care than I can provide here, Santos added quietly. We're keeping him stable, but his vitals are declining. He needs a surgeon. Kira moved to where Merrick lay unconscious, his face gray beneath the field dressings. She had spent months working alongside this man, had trusted him to watch her back in combat situations. And when it mattered, he had said nothing while Vaughn destroyed her. But looking at him now, dying from wounds he had sustained because of Vaughn's tactical failures, she felt no satisfaction. Just a profound sadness for all the ways loyalty and honor got corrupted by politics and fear. She checked his vitals, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. His blood pressure was dropping. The field dressings were holding, but internal bleeding was likely. Santos was right. 6 hours might be too long. Can we move him? She asked. Not recommended, Santos said. The trauma from movement could accelerate the bleeding. But if the alternative is watching him die here, we do not have much choice. Kira stood and moved to the shelter entrance, looking out at the storm. It was still brutal, but no longer the impossible wall of white it had been during her trek. Visibility was maybe 50 meters, winds down to survivable levels. An idea formed, dangerous and desperate, but potentially viable. "What if we do not wait 6 hours?" she said. Vaughn came up behind her. "What are you talking about?" "There's a clearing about 2 miles north of here. Big enough for a helicopter if the pilot has the skill and the nerve. If we can get Merrick there, we can request emergency medevac ahead of the main extraction." "In these conditions," Vaughn said, "you will kill him trying to move him." Kira turned to face him. "He's dying right now. At least this way, he has a chance." She looked past Vaughn to the other team members. "I need 3 volunteers. We build a litter, we move fast and careful, and we get him to that clearing." "Who is with me?" There was a moment of hesitation. Then Pavlis stepped forward. "I am in." Santos nodded. "I go where my patient goes." Hastings looked at Vaughn, then at Kira, then made his choice. "I will help carry him." They built the litter from equipment, webbing, and support poles, working with the efficiency of men who understood that every minute counted. Santos supervised the transfer of Merrick onto the makeshift stretcher, his hands gentle despite the urgency. The wounded SEAL groaned as they moved him, a sound that meant he was still fighting even if he was not conscious. Kira checked her GPS and marked the route to the clearing. 2 miles through terrain that was still treacherous, carrying a critically wounded man in conditions that could shift from marginal to deadly without warning. The storm had lessened, but it had not stopped. Wind still gusted hard enough to knock a person off balance, and visibility came and went like a stuttering light. "We move in shifts," she said, organizing the team with calm authority. 2 on the litter at all times, 1 forward scout, 1 rear security. Rotate every 15 minutes to prevent exhaustion. Stay tight, stay focused, do not take risks. Our only job is getting Merrick to that clearing alive. Vaughn stood near the shelter entrance, his expression unreadable. He had not volunteered to help carry the litter. Kira had not expected him to. He was good at giving orders and accepting credit, less good at the hard work that came between. "Keep the rest of the team secure until the main extraction," she told Vaughn. "We will radio when we reach the clearing and request immediate medevac." "You do not give me orders, Bridger," Vaughn said. Kira shouldered her peck. "Consider it a suggestion, then." She turned to the volunteer team. "Let's move." The first half-mile nearly broke them. The litter was awkward, the weight distribution difficult to manage on uneven terrain. Merrick's condition made every jostle potentially fatal. Santos called out constant warnings about angles and movement speed, trying to minimize trauma while they scrambled over rocks and through snow drifts. Kira took point, breaking trail and checking for hazards. Her feet were still damaged from frostbite, every step sending jolts of pain up her legs. But pain was familiar. Pain was manageable. She had learned long ago to compartmentalize physical suffering and focus on the mission. They rotated positions at 15-minute intervals as planned. Pavlis and Hastings on the litter, then Kira and Santos, then back again in careful coordination. The young SEAL worked with desperate intensity, as if carrying this wounded man could somehow atone for his silence during Kira's hearing. Hastings said nothing, his face locked in concentration, but Kira caught him watching her with something that might have been respect or might have been guilt. At the Onamil mark, Santos called a halt. He checked Merrick's vitals, and his expression tightened. "Blood pressure is dropping. Pulse is thready. We need to move faster. We move any faster and we risk dropping him," Kira said. She was breathing hard, her body running on reserves that should not have existed. "What can we do to stabilize him?" Santos pulled out a 4-bag and adjusted the flow. "I am maxing out his fluids and administering clotting agents. But without surgical intervention, this is just buying time." "Then let us not waste the time we are buying," Kira said. She took her position at the litter, and they resumed movement, pushing harder despite the risks. The clearing appeared through the storm like a mirage, A roughly circular open space surrounded by stunted trees bent sideways from years of wind. Kira called a halt to the tree line and pulled out a radio. "Cole Bay, this is Bridger. We have reached the extraction point with critical casualty. Request immediate medevac, over." Static crackled for what felt like an eternity. Then Captain Slade's voice came through. "Bridger, conditions are still marginal for flight. I have a pilot willing to try, but it is going to be tight. ETA, 20 minutes if we can get clearance for takeoff." "We do not have 20 minutes, Kira said. She looked at Santos, who was checking Merrick's pulse with increasing urgency. "We have maybe 10 before he crashes. You need to get that bird in the air now." "Stand by," Slade said. Kira moved to the center of the clearing and began marking it for the pilot. She used chemical light sticks from her pack, spacing them to define the landing zone. The wind tried to scatter them, but she weighted each one with rocks. Pavlis helped, moving with the same desperate energy. Hastings approached her as she worked, his bulk blocking the wind. "Bridger, I need to say something." "Not now, Chief," Kira said, not looking up from her work. "Yes, now," Hastings insisted. "Because if Merrick dies, I might not get another chance." He waited until she stopped and faced him. "What we did to you at that hearing was wrong. What I did, backing Vaughn's lies, was wrong. I told myself I was following orders, supporting my commander. But the truth is I was just a coward who chose convenience over honor." Kira studied his face, seeing genuine remorse mixed with shame. "You are right. You were a coward. You helped destroy my career because it was easier than standing up for what you knew was true." Hastings flinched but held her gaze. "I know, and I will have to live with that. But watching you hike 40 miles through hell to save us, watching you risk your life for men who betrayed you, it made me realize what real honor looks like." He extended his hand. "I cannot undo what I did, but I can make sure the truth comes out when we get back. All of it." Kira looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Then she took it, her grip firm despite her exhaustion. "The truth has a way of coming out eventually, Chief. But I appreciate you being willing to tell it." The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the storm, distant but growing closer. Santos had Merrick ready for immediate transfer, for bags held high, equipment secured. The helicopter appeared through the clouds, a Coast Guard rescue bird with a pilot who had either nerves of steel or a death wish. The landing was violent, the helicopter bucking in the wind as the pilot fought for control. The moment the skids touched ground, the crew chief jumped out and helped load Merrick aboard. Santos climbed in with his patient, already calling out vitals to the onboard medic. Kira guided Pavlis and Hastings away from the rotor wash as the helicopter lifted off, struggling against the wind before finally gaining altitude and disappearing into the storm. They stood in the clearing watching it go, 3 exhausted people who had just bought 1 wounded SEAL a chance at survival. "We should get back to the others," Pavlis said. "Main extraction should be coming soon." They made the return journey in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. When they reached the shelter, Vaughn was on the radio, coordinating the main extraction. He looked up as they entered, his expression carefully neutral. "Merrick is away," Kira reported. "Medevac successful." Vaughn nodded once. "Main extraction birds are inbound. ETA 15 minutes. He hesitated, then added, "You did good work getting him out." Kira did not respond. She moved to where her gear was stacked and began preparing for extraction. The mission was almost over. Soon they would be back at base, back to the world of reports and politics and consequences. But here, in this moment, she allowed herself to feel something like satisfaction. She had done what she came to do. She had saved lives that others had said were not worth the risk. The helicopters arrived exactly on schedule, 2 birds touching down simultaneously in the valley. The team loaded efficiently, wounded first, then equipment, then personnel. Kira was the last aboard, taking one final look at the frozen landscape that had nearly killed her. As the helicopter lifted off, she saw Vaughn watching her from across the cargo bay. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Acknowledgement, maybe, understanding that whatever happened next, this moment had changed the calculus of their conflict. She had proven something that could not be denied or explained away, and Vaughn knew it. The base at Cold Bay had never looked so welcoming. The helicopters touched down on the landing pad just as the storm finally broke, revealing a sky that was transitioning from angry gray to something approaching normal. Kira climbed out stiffly, her body screaming in protest at every movement. Medical personnel swarmed the wounded, prioritizing treatment and transport. Captain Slade was waiting on the tarmac, his weathered face creased with something that might have been relief or disbelief. "Bridger, his office now," he said, then added more quietly, "Well done, Lieutenant." Kira followed him across the base, aware of the stares from other personnel. Word had clearly spread about what she had done. The impossible trek, the tactical engagement, the emergency medevac. Stories like that traveled fast in military communities, growing with each retelling until they bore little resemblance to reality. But this time the reality was impressive enough without embellishment. Slade closed his office door and gestured for her to sit. She remained standing, too wired to relax. He did not push the issue. "I have been getting calls for the past 6 hours," he said. "JSOC wants a full after-action report. Commander Royce wants to know how you managed to survive that trek. And Admiral Preston Harlan himself is flying in tomorrow to debrief you personally." "Admiral Harlan," Kira repeats it. The JSOC commander who had rubber-stamped her expulsion based on Vaughn's mentor's recommendation. "The same," Slade confirmed. He leaned against his desk. "Bridger, what you did out there is going to create waves. Big ones. You just made a lot of people look very bad by comparison. Vaughn especially, but also everyone who signed off on your removal from the teams." "I was just doing my job," Kira said. "Your job is logistics coordination," Slade pointed out. "Hiking 40 miles through a Category 3 storm to single-handedly break an ambush and save a SEAL team is significantly outside your duty description." He paused. "It is also the kind of thing that gets people medals and promotions. Or, given the political complications, it is the kind of thing that gets people quietly disappeared before they become too inconvenient." Kira met his gaze. "Which way do you think this goes, sir?" Slade shrugged. "Depends on who controls the narrative. Vaughn is already spinning it, trying to minimize your role and emphasize his leadership during the crisis. But you have witnesses now. Chief Hastings came to me an hour ago and gave a statement about what really happened on Kodiak Island. Pavlis corroborated it. Even some of the others who stayed silent before are ready to talk." "Why now?" Kira asked, though she thought she knew the answer. "Because they watched you risk everything to save them despite what they did to you," Slade said. "That kind of integrity is rare enough that it makes people question their own choices. Hastings in particular seems determined to make things right, though I suspect it is more about salvaging his own conscience than helping you." The office door opened without warning and Commander Royce walked in, her expression tight with controlled anger. She looked at Kira and some of the tension left her shoulders. "You are alive. Good. That simplifies things." "Ma'am," Kira said, straightening to attention. "At ease," Royce said. She turned to Slade. "Has she been briefed on the Admiral's visit?" "Just now," Slade confirmed. "Then you should also know that Captain Reina Castellanos from Naval Intelligence has been conducting a quiet investigation into the original Kodiak Island incident," Royce said. She had questions about the timeline discrepancies in Vaughn's report. Questions that became much more pointed after your recent rescue operation demonstrated tactical competence that contradicted the official narrative of insubordination and poor judgment. "An investigation," Kira said carefully. "When did this start?" 2 days after your hearing," Royce replied. "I reached out to Castellanos because I have worked with her before and trust her to follow evidence wherever it leads, regardless of political pressure. She has been reviewing the mission recordings, interviewing team members, and building a case. Your recent actions have accelerated her timeline significantly." "Meaning what exactly?" Kira asked. "Meaning tomorrow when Admiral Harlan arrives, he is not just coming to debrief you about the rescue operation," Royce said. "He is coming because Captain Castellanos has presented evidence that you were wrongfully removed from your position based on fabricated testimony and command influence. Evidence that is now impossible to ignore given that you just proved your tactical excellence beyond any reasonable doubt." Kira felt something shift in her chest, a tension she had been carrying for weeks beginning to loosen. You were saying they might reinstate me. I am saying they might do more than that, Royce replied. What you did out there, Bridger, that is the kind of operation that gets people noticed at the highest levels. Single operator, extreme conditions, tactical precision, successful mission outcome with 0 friendly casualties during your engagement. Those are the metrics that JSOC uses to identify exceptional talent. Unless they decide I am too much of a problem and quietly bury this, Kira said. Slade shook his head. Too late for that. Half the base saw you come back with Vaughn's team. Master Chief Dalton has been telling everyone who will listen about how you kept his crash survivors alive. The story is already out there and growing. They cannot disappear you without making it look like they are punishing competence and rewarding incompetence. A knock at the door interrupted them. Chief Hastings stood in the doorway, still in his field gear, his face exhausted but determined. Commander, I need to speak with Lieutenant Bridger. Privately, if possible. Royce looked at Kira, who nodded. Make it quick, Royce said, and stepped out with Slade, leaving Kira alone with the man who had helped destroy her career. Hastings closed the door and stood there for a moment, as if gathering courage. I gave my statement to Captain Slade. Everything that happened on Kodiak, everything Vaughn lied about, everything I lied about, is all documented now with my signature on it. Good, Kira said simply. It is not good, Hastings replied. It does not fix what was done to you. It does not undo the damage. But it is a start. He took a breath. I also need you to know that Vaughn is panicking. He knows this is all coming apart. He is making calls, trying to activate his network, preparing to fight the investigation. He is dangerous when he is cornered. I can handle Vaughn, Kira said. Maybe, Hastings said, but you should not have to handle him alone. Whatever comes next, whatever Vaughn tries to pull, he is going to find that his support has evaporated. The team knows the truth now. We all know what you did and what he did. He paused. For what it is worth, if I could go back and do it differently, I would. But you cannot go back, Kira said. None of us can. All we can do is move forward and try to do better. Hastings nodded and left without another word. Kira stood alone in the office, processing everything that had happened in the past 48 hours. She had gone from disgraced exile to potential vindication, from forgotten logistics officer to SEAL operator who had accomplished the impossible. But none of it changed the fundamental truth. She had not done any of this for recognition or redemption. She had done it because it was right, because people needed help and she had the skills to provide it. That was what being a SEAL meant to her, what her father had taught her it should mean. Not glory or promotions or political maneuvering, but the simple willingness to risk everything for others. Commander Royce returned to the office. Get some rest, Bridger. Tomorrow is going to be intense. Admiral Harland does not make trips like this for routine debriefings. Whatever happens, you need to be sharp. Yes, ma'am, Kira said. She started toward the door, then paused. Commander, thank you for believing in me when it was not politically convenient. Royce smiled slightly. I did not believe in you because it was convenient, Lieutenant. I believed in you because you earned it. Now go get some sleep before you fall over. Kira walked back to her quarters through a base that felt different than it had that morning. People nodded to her as she passed. A few even saluted, showing respect that went beyond rank. She made it to her room, closed the door, and finally allowed herself to collapse onto the bunk. Her body hurt everywhere. Her feet were still damaged from frostbite. Her muscles felt like shredded tissue. But as she lay there in the darkness, she felt something she had not experienced in weeks. Hope, not certainty, not confidence that everything would work out, but genuine hope that truth might actually matter after all. Admiral Preston Harland arrived at Cold Bay with the kind of precision that made junior officers nervous. His helicopter touched down exactly on schedule, and he emerged in crisp dress blues that seemed impossibly clean for someone who had just traveled through the Aleutian weather. Kira stood at attention on the tarmac alongside Captain Slade and Commander Royce, her own uniform pressed as well as possible given the circumstances. The Admiral was in his late 50s, with silver hair and the kind of weathered face that came from decades of command decisions. He returned their salutes, and his gaze settled on Kira with an intensity that felt like a physical weight. "Lieutenant Bridger, walk with me." It was not a request. Kira fell in a step beside him as he moved toward the command building, leaving the others behind. They walked in silence until they were alone in a secure briefing room. Harlan closed the door and gestured for her sit. This time she obeyed. "I have read Captain Castellanos' report," Harlan said without preamble. "I have reviewed the original mission recordings from Kodiak Island. I have interviewed multiple members of Lieutenant Commander Vaughn's team, and I have spent the past 12 hours reading after-action reports about your unauthorized rescue operation." He leaned against the table and crossed his arms. "Do you know what picture emerges from all of that information, Lieutenant?" "Sir, it is a picture of systematic command failure at multiple levels," Harlan continued, cutting her off. "A skilled operator removed from her position based on fabricated evidence. A commanding officer more concerned with career advancement than tactical competence. And a review process that failed to properly investigate the facts because it was easier to believe the man with the right connections." He paused. "It is also a picture of extraordinary courage and tactical excellence demonstrated under impossible conditions." Kira remained silent, unsure where this was going. Harlan's expression was unreadable. "I signed off on your removal," the Admiral said quietly. "Rear Admiral Cutler brought the case to me with Vaughn's testimony and supporting statements. I reviewed it for approximately 20 minutes before approving the decision. 20 minutes to destroy a career I should have spent hours defending." He met her eyes. "That was a failure on my part, Lieutenant. A failure I intend to correct." "Sir, what does that mean?" Kira asked. "It means your expulsion is being formally rescinded effective immediately," Harlan said. "It means Lieutenant Commander Derek Vaughn is being relieved of command and will face charges for filing false reports and conduct unbecoming. It means Chief Petty Officer Lorne Hastings and others who provided false testimony will be formally reprimanded." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "And it means you are being promoted to Lieutenant Commander and assigned to lead a new Special Operations team focused on Arctic and extreme environment operations." Kira stared at the folder, not quite processing the words. Promoted. Not just reinstated, but elevated. Given command of her own team. It was more than vindication. It was validation of everything she had fought for. "I do not understand, sir," she said. "Why now? Why go this far?" Harlan's expression softened slightly. "Because what you did out there demonstrated something we desperately need in special operations. Not just tactical skill, though you have that in abundance, but the kind of integrity that does not bend based on personal cost. You could have let Vaughn's team die. No one would have blamed you. Instead, you risked your life to save men who had betrayed you. That is the kind of leadership we should be promoting, not punishing." "What about political blowback?" Kira asked. "Rear Admiral Cutler is not going to accept this quietly." "Rear Admiral Cutler is retiring," Harlan said flatly. "After I reviewed the full case, I had a conversation with him about his role in this situation. He decided that early retirement was preferable to a formal investigation into command influence and cronyism. Vaughn's mentor is gone, which means Vaughn has no protection from the consequences of his actions." A knock at the door interrupted them. Commander Royce entered with Captain Reina Castellanos, a sharp-featured woman in her 40s who carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who dealt in facts rather than politics. "Admiral, the investigation file is complete. All evidence has been documented and witnesses have been deposed." "Excellent," Harlan said. He turned back to Kira. "Captain Castellanos will be presenting the full case to a review board next week. Vaughn will have the opportunity to defend himself, though given the evidence against him, I doubt he will mount much of a defense. The board will determine final disciplinary action, but his career is effectively over." "Where is Vaughn now?" Kira asked. "Confined to quarters pending the hearing," Royce said. "He tried to leave the base this morning, but was stopped by security. He is not taking this well." "I imagine not," Harlan said. He stood and extended his hand to Kira. "Welcome back to the teams, Commander. Your new assignment begins in 2 weeks, which should give you time to recover from your injuries and prepare for your new role. Questions? Kira stood and shook his hand, her grip firm despite the lingering pain in her damaged feet. Just one, sir. My team. Do I get to select my own personnel? Within reason, yes, Harlan replied. You will need command approval for transfers, but I am inclined to give you significant latitude given your track record. Who did you have in mind? Petty Officer Nico Pavlis, Kira said. He made mistakes, but he is learning from them. He has potential that deserves development. She paused. And I would like Master Chief Dalton from the transport crash. He has Arctic experience and the kind of steady leadership that would complement the team well. Consider it done, Harlan said. Anyone else? I will need to review available personnel, Kira said. But those two are the priority. Harlan nodded and moved toward the door. There will be a formal ceremony tomorrow at 0900. Your promotion will be made official and you will receive recognition for your actions during the rescue operation. Press will be present. JSOC wants this story told properly, as a counterpoint to the narrative that we do not take care of our people. He glanced back at her. Prepare appropriate remarks. Keep them brief and professional. After Harlan left, Royce approached Kira with something approaching a smile. How does it feel, Commander? Surreal, Kira admitted. 12 hours ago, I was an exiled logistics officer. Now I am being given command of a specialized team. You earned it, Castellanos said. What you did out there was not just impressive from a tactical standpoint. It was a masterclass in leadership under pressure, the kind of operation that gets studied in training courses. Kira looked down at the folder in her hands, still processing everything. What happens to the people who back Vaughn? The ones who provided false testimony. Reprimand for most, Castellanos said. Hastings is getting the worst of it because of his rank and his leadership role in perpetuating the lies. But the Admiral decided that public accountability was more important than wholesale career destruction. They will carry this mark permanently, but they will have the opportunity to rebuild their reputations through future conduct. That seems fair, Kira said. She had no desire for revenge, just justice. The people who had wronged her would face consequences, but they would also have the chance to do better. That was more than she had expected. Royce handed her a tablet with personnel files. Start reviewing these. Your new team is going to need people who can operate in the worst conditions on Earth. People who will not crack under pressure and will not compromise their integrity for political convenience. Kira took the tablet and began scrolling through the files, her mind already shifting into operational mode. She had been torn down, stripped of everything she had worked for, abandoned in the frozen edge of nowhere. But she had survived. More than survived, she had proven that honor and competence could not be destroyed by lies and politics. Tomorrow there would be a ceremony. There would be speeches and recognition and all the formal trappings of military tradition. But tonight, alone in her quarters with personnel files and mission plans, Kira felt something deeper than satisfaction. She felt purpose, the kind that came from knowing she had been tested in every way possible and had emerged stronger. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her father's challenge coin, holding it up to the light. Senior Chief Marcus Bridger had taught her that integrity was not about winning or losing. It was about staying true to who you were regardless of the cost. She had done that, and now, finally, the system had recognized it. The ceremony took place in the main hangar, transformed for the occasion with rows of chairs and a small platform. Personnel from across the base filled the space, along with press representatives and video crews documenting everything for official records. Kira stood backstage in her dress blues, the new rank insignia already affixed to her uniform, feeling oddly detached from the moment. Commander Royce appeared beside her. Nervous, she asked. No, Kira said honestly. Whatever happens out there, it does not change what I know to be true. I did my job. I kept people alive. The rest is just ceremony. Good answer, Royce said. But try to look at least a little pleased when the Admiral pins your new rank. The press loves a good redemption story. The ceremony began with military precision. Captain Slade gave brief remarks about the rescue operation, carefully avoiding the political complications while emphasizing the tactical excellence. Admiral Harlan took the podium next, his voice carrying authority that silenced any whispers in the crowd. "Today we recognize extraordinary service under impossible conditions," Harlan said. Lieutenant Kira Bridger demonstrated tactical mastery, physical courage, and moral integrity in executing a solo rescue operation that saved 8 lives. Her actions represent the highest ideals of naval special warfare. He gestured toward the wings. Lieutenant Commander Bridger, front and center. Kira walked onto the platform, her movements steady despite the eyes watching her. She stood at attention as Harlan approached. The Admiral removed her old rank insignia and replaced it with a new, his movements formal, but his voice quiet enough that only she could hear. "Your father would be proud," he said. The words hit harder than Kira expected. She blinked once, maintaining composure, and replied equally quietly, "Thank you, sir." Harlan stepped back and addressed the crowd. In addition to her promotion, Lieutenant Commander Bridger is being awarded the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism in combat conditions. Her solo tactical engagement against superior enemy forces, conducted while physically compromised from extreme environmental exposure, resulted in breaking an enemy ambush and enabling the safe extraction of a pinned SEAL team. A sailor brought forward the medal case. Harlan pinned it to Kira's uniform, the weight of it settling against her chest like validation made physical. The crowd erupted in applause, and Kira allowed herself a small smile. Not because of the recognition, but because the people she had saved were alive to witness this moment. "Lieutenant Commander Bridger will now say a few words," Harlan said, stepping aside. Kira approached the microphone, scanning the crowd. She saw Master Chief Dalton in the front row, his injured ankle wrapped, but his posture perfect. Specialist Carver sat beside him, her fractured wrist in a cast. Petty Officer Pavlis stood near the back, his young face serious. Chief Hastings was there too, his expression a mix of respect and residual shame. And in the far corner, surrounded by military police, Lieutenant Commander Derek Vaughn watched with undisguised bitterness. Their eyes met across the distance, and Kira felt nothing but pity for him. He had sacrificed his integrity for career advancement and ended up losing everything. She had defended her integrity at great cost and gained more than she imagined possible. "I'm not good at speeches," Kira began, her voice steady, "so I will keep this brief. What happened over the past weeks taught me something important. The system is not perfect. People in positions of authority make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes cause real harm to real people. But the system can also correct itself when enough people refuse to accept injustice." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I did not undertake that rescue operation for recognition or vindication. I did it because people needed help and I had the skills to provide it. That is what being a SEAL means to me. Not glory or medals or rank. Just the willingness to risk everything when others cannot risk anything." The hangar was silent except for the faint sound of wind against the metal walls. Many people contributed to making this right. Commander Royce, who never stopped believing in the truth. Captain Castellanos, who followed evidence instead of politics. Admiral Harland, who had the courage to admit error and correct it. Chief Hastings and Petty Officer Pavlis, who chose integrity over convenience even when it cost them. She looked directly at Vaughn. "And to those who try to destroy my career, I have nothing but gratitude. You tested my principles and found them unbreakable. You pushed me to the edge and discovered I cannot be broken. You tried to bury me and instead taught me exactly how strong I really am." The silence stretched for a heartbeat. Then someone started clapping, slow and deliberate. Master Chief Dalton. Others joined until the entire hangar was filled with applause that felt different from the polite recognition earlier. This was respect earned through action, not ceremony. Kira stepped back from a microphone as the applause continued. Admiral Harland shook her hand again, this time with genuine warmth. "Well said, Commander. Your new team is lucky to have you." The ceremony concluded with official photographs and brief press interviews. Kira answered questions with the same directness she brought to everything else, refusing to dramatize or embellish. The facts spoke for themselves. 40 miles through a Category 3 storm, solo tactical engagement, successful rescue, 0 additional casualties. The numbers told the story better than any narrative flourish. As the crowd dispersed, Nico Pavlis approached hesitantly. "Commander, I heard I am being assigned to your new team. I want to say thank you for giving me another chance." Kira studied him. "I am not giving you another chance, petty officer. I am giving you the opportunity to prove you learned from your mistakes. Whether that becomes a second chance or a final failure is entirely up to you." "Understood, ma'am," Pavlis said. "I will not let you down." "Good," Kira said. "Report to my office tomorrow at 0700. We have a team to build." Master Chief Dalton joined them, moving carefully on his healing ankle. "Commander Bridger, I look forward to serving under your command. It will be interesting to work with someone who actually practices the values the rest of us just talk about. Just do your job well, Chief, and we will get along fine," Kira said. As they walked away, Commander Royce appeared at her elbow. "How does it feel now that it is official?" Kira considered the question. "Like I have work to do, a team to build, missions to plan, people to train. The same as before, just with more responsibility." Royce laughed. "Somehow I expected you would say that." She held out a folder. "Your first assignment as team commander. JSOC wants a comprehensive doctrine for Arctic Special Operations. 6 months to develop training protocols, equipment specifications, and tactical frameworks. Think you can handle it?" Kira took the folder, already mentally organizing the project. "Yes, ma'am. It will be done." She spent the rest of the day in meetings and paperwork, the bureaucratic reality of command replacing the drama of the ceremony. By evening, she was back in her quarters, exhausted but satisfied. The room looked the same as it had that morning, but everything had changed. She sat on her bunk and pulled out her father's challenge coin one final time. Senior Chief Marcus Bridger had died defending his principles, refusing to compromise even when it cost him everything. Kira had inherited that stubborn integrity, and it had nearly destroyed her. But in the end, it had saved her instead. Tomorrow she would begin building her new team. She would develop the training protocols that would prepare operators for the harshest environments on Earth. She would ensure that the lessons learned from this experience, both the failures and the successes, will be passed on to the next generation of warriors. But tonight, alone in her quarters with the weight of new rank on her shoulders and the medal for extraordinary heroism on her chest, Kira allowed herself to simply be grateful. Grateful for the people who had supported her. Grateful for the strength her father had instilled in her. Grateful that integrity, despite all evidence to the contrary, sometimes actually mattered. If you connected with Kira's story of resilience and redemption, drop a comment about what resonated most with you. Maybe you have witnessed someone prove their worth against all odds, or perhaps you have experienced being underestimated and then proving everyone wrong. Share your thoughts about courage, integrity, and the power of doing what is right even when it costs everything. She placed the challenge coin on her nightstand where she could see it, a reminder of where she came from and what she stood for. Then she turned off the light and let exhaustion finally claim her, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But she had faced the worst and survived. Whatever came next, she was ready.